Good morning, fellow travelers on spaceship Earth. For reasons, our background keeps turning off now, so I have to go manually turn on our background every day. There's a lot of steps to this now. There doesn't need to be, but there apparently is, and so that's the way this goes. I'm not sure why so many steps, but okay. I was having an interesting discussion with my friend Alex, whom is one of my closest and dearest buddies, and also walks with me in the morning to make sure that I'm staying somewhat active. he takes his guy for a walk. We were having an interesting discussion about how parts of human culture are sort of repeating or trying to think of the words for it, because what we were saying was you can see a track of things that go from one side to the other, to the other, to the other. And they start out in places like ancient Greece or ancient Mesopotamia, and the thread, you can see it cleanly go all the way through to some part of today's culture and affecting it. And then people just assume that these things they can't be fixed because they've always been here. I've been pondering this, thinking, of course, as the unity, and talking about unity government and stuff like that. Always fascinates me to think about stuff. In this case, unity government, being a thing that I'm contemplating. Maybe this actually has been decided with hermetics, right? So there's a lot of so first of all, I'll posit something very straight up, and that is, as long as you are as long as somebody can lever Maslow's bottom layer of needs, you cannot have a moral society. People cannot choose to be moral. People cannot choose to be good. And I think that over the years, we have tried to make our functions of society operate in a way where morality pays. But the truth is, morality does not pay. Amorality pays. And we are operating solely on human goodwill, which is funny because I look at this and think about this, and suddenly I realize the reason that we are all being, the reason that I believe that humans are good by default is because the system actually encourages you to be bad. And so it actually encourages bad behavior. And so the fact that we actually end up with a mostly good society means that people by default are good. They have to be. Because you think about this. For those of you who are not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is a system that was brought about. Let me see if I can actually bring up like this here. And we'll talk about Maslow's. Right, this is something that was created a long time ago. I'll actually save this because I use this a lot in my world building. So there we go. That way I can bring it up more often and bring it routinely to the forefront. But if we talk a little bit about I'm trying to find it now. I've just gone and hidden it from myself. Yay, good job, me. Let's talk about this. Right. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This bottom rung right here, in fact, I'd even say these two bottom rungs are part of the reason why people have problems in their life, right? So if you're not meeting these two bottom rungs right here, the safety needs and the physiological needs, if you're not meeting those, then you are having problems with society. And the social needs, the esteem needs, all of these things actually exist in societal structure. But from this middle line right here up, we kind of have a striving forward, something that could be used in the meritocracy. So when you look at this particular category set, from about this midline, I'll put a line in right here. Right? There's this midline. From this midline, let me just get a felt tip pen here. Upward is a meritocracy. And then downward below here is communism or socialism. And the reason that it has to be set up in this sort of way is because the problem with having a capitalistic society is it puts this line here and then says everything up here is capitalism. And with that, between here and here, this set of lines then becomes an ethics, an experiment in ethics. Those who have these two layers met will be the ones dictating the ethics of society. Those that don't have them will be the ones that will be forced to enforce the ethics of society wherever they are. And this is the infamous golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rules. This needs to change in a society in order for us to operate properly, I think. And I think it should be built into Bellatrix Rising's core belief systems that at no point can this red line be crossed. Good morning, Chuan. You're 15 minutes late. It's fine. This isn't class. You don't have to worry. But I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking that from the point of view of a society, this is a right. And this, from the society's point of view, is a privilege. And the society sees because see, in Maslow's structure, he puts morality up here on this top self-actualization. And I feel like that's a bias, right? Because he's biased. Because I think you can be moral from the core. Humans are inherently moral people. And that's a bias that we believe that they aren't. They're only not moral because this line here is down here and below. Yeah. I think everybody has a right to this. Okay. Are we in Japanese mode? We are. It auto-detected that I was speaking Japanese, which is funny. Gotta write this correctly. Invites. You have me as a friend. I'm your friend. And it's okay. Don't worry about it. And I'll bet you actually do have friends if you looked. They're there. We all sort of belong in some way or another. No, that is exactly correct. Yes, you are my friend. I consider you a friend. Kimi no tomodachi desu. It is understood that by allowing that biased third-party access to an individual's basic needs invites indentured servitude and compromises that individual's ability to maintain their morality, which you're welcome. Is a Here we go. It's understood that by allowing a biased third party access to an individual's basic needs invites indentured servitude and compromises that individual's ability to maintain their personal morality, which is ultimately a detriment to society. All right. Fail. Oof. Okay, I'm making some thought processes, thoughts that come from the concept of how my society runs. And the first one is everyone has a right to the bottom two layers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that's what we were just talking about here and here. Everybody has a right to water, air, sleep, shelter, temperature control. Everybody has a right to stability, safety, predictability, protection, freedom from fear, structure, law and order, and limits, right? Those are things that everybody should have a right to. When they have these met, they can meet these other ones themselves. They have the freedom to do that. It's understood that by allowing a biased third party access to an individual's basic needs invites indentured servitude and compromises that individual's ability to maintain their personal morality, which is ultimately a detriment to society. So, in other words, if we can take away food, then we force people to do things they don't want to do. We can force people to do things that they don't want to do. So we don't want to force people in this society to do things that they don't want to do. There was another thing I wanted to put in here, and now I've forgotten what it was. I've got to think. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Although I am thinking really hard and not being very exciting right now, but this is a very important piece of my world. And it's very important for me to think through how this works. Because in my world, it's like the TV show Star Trek, right? There's no money. But how do you make a culture work without money? And why did they decide to make a culture which didn't need money? So, how does this work? Ah, that's it. 3. All right. Um, we will. Oh, good to see you, Sarge. I don't. Jackson streams only on the night show. Chuan. Jackson joins the night show. This is because during the day they work. They work at work. And Sarge, I can't help myself. I have to go. Major project. Oh, proofreading. Yeah, I feel like. Right. I noticed that you aren't alone on that one, Sarge. I've seen many books where I see a typo and I'm like, how did this go through editing process ever with a typo in it? And usually it's one of the normal typos you see, like, you know, thus instead of this and stuff like that, where I'm like, that's just a typo. And somebody read it because it was a real word, and missed it entirely. What else? Oh, good. Good. Sometimes it is the simple things that escape you. Nutrition, hydration. Nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest, shelter, environmental control, privacy, and security. There's one more I want. Privacy, freedom, and security. Right? Because we want freedom from fear. I don't know if I'd call order, though. Back to the grind. See you later. Bye, Sarge. Environment control. Maybe order? There we go. Nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest. Okay, so those are the 4 things you need. Shelter, environmental control. Privacy, freedom from fear, order, and security. There we go. All citizens have a right to the basic needs. To their basic needs. There we go. Nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest, shelter, environment control. privacy, freedom from fear, order, and security. This is granted by society by default. It's understood that by allowing a biased third party access to an individual's basic needs, invites indentured servitude and compromises that individual's ability to maintain their personal morality, which is ultimately a detriment to society. We invite indentured servitude and compromise an individual's ability to maintain their personal morality. There we go. So, one thing about English that I've noticed isn't quite the same about Japanese is there's a lot more, I feel, crafting of English. You have to, when you work with English, you have to know a lot of words that mean most of this idea or some of this idea so that you can complete the tasks that need to be or say the words you want to say. So, for example, in this instance, I am crafting these words so that they will say the things that I want them to say. So all citizens have a right to their basic needs: nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest, shelter, environment control, privacy, freedom from fear, order, and security. That's 10. This is granted by society by default. A society must protect those rights, as it is understood that by allowing a biased third party access to an individual's basic needs, we invite indentured servitude and compromise their ability to maintain their morality. This ultimately is destructive to society. Okay, works. 2, the society should always view the fruits of a citizen's work as a privilege and strive to enfranchise those citizens to work for the betterment of society without force or coercion. We understand this is the harder path, but we have learned from our mistakes the alternative is far worse. Number 3, we assume the best of everyone, knowing that assuming the worst leads to a paranoid and uncomfortable society for all. We assume the risk of being abused in exchange for a happier life. Right. I'm getting sick. Yes, that's what we say is I'm getting sick. That's not good. Um, but I could almost sick. You're right. That does not work. OCD is a mental problem, a brain problem. You know, then we talk a little bit about Wah! Do it again. Kablam! What platforms am I streaming? Let's see here. We are streaming on Art Crumb's YouTube, Kayan's YouTube, my Facebook, Kayan's Picardo, Kayan's Twitch, my professional Twitter, and my artist page on Facebook, my Twitch, and my YouTube. So that's where we are on that. You're welcome. All right. Now, I may change these at this time. It would be a good time to do that. This is the Commonwealth. Or the original Federation of worlds here. There we go. their right to live, to live, to live, to live, to live. Maybe we'll call it credible. There we go. So no being shall be denied the right to their basic needs or deprived of the right to live their life as they intend, unless their life or action poses a credible threat to the livelihood of the other beings in the civilization. We have been. I've been trying to work this out for a while. This is Order 1. Order 2. No being shall be denied the right to have every chance to better themselves. Civilization must not discount or give up on a being. Beings must be free to try and fail as often as needed to be successful. It's Order 2. Order 3. No being shall be unnaturally crafted by another being. That's the God rule, number 3. That's so that I can have one specific story. Nor shall a being be crafted, be altered by another being. Because this is the one that my character Chang has been violated upon. This happened to Chang. So she was crafted by another being and altered. Except for threat to life or life quality. There we go. So Cheng was genetically modified. Bye-bye. See you later. Good night. No being shall be acted upon by a civilization unless they are fully aware of the consequences of their actions. Not the established. That's not the word I'm looking for. I am looking for. What am I looking for? A civilized society. No being shall be denied the right to their basic needs or deprived of the right to live their life as they intend, unless their life or action poses a credible threat to the livelihood of other beings in the civilization. That's order one. Order two, no being shall be denied the right to have every chance to better themselves. Civilization must not discount or give up on a being. So beings must be free to try and fail as often as needed to be successful. That's the anti-prison rule. Number three, no being shall be unnaturally crafted by another being, nor shall a being be altered by another being for any reason except for threat to life or life quality. That's the God rule. No being shall be acted upon by the civilization unless they are made fully aware of the consequences of the action. For the action and the consequences of the action. That's your Fifth Amendment right. Right, your Miranda rights right there. That's fourth order. No being shall be acted upon by the civilization unless they are made fully aware of the reason for the action and the consequences of the action. So, in other words, I can't arrest you until I make sure you understand why I'm arresting you and what will happen when I arrest you, right? And then five, no being shall be denied arbitration by a recognized disinterested third party. And that's important because disinterested's critical. Because I can't that's we actually set our trials that way. In the United States, we set our trials this way. No being should be denied the right to their basic needs or deprived of the right to live their life as they intend, unless their life or action poses a credible threat to the livelihood of other beings. This is also becomes the prime directive. Right? Ah. Ooh. I don't know what that was a problem for. Society must protect. Uh, this is granted by the civilization by default. The civilization must protect those rights as it is understood that by allowing a biased third party access to a being's basic needs, we invite indentured servitude and compromise their ability to maintain their morality. This ultimately makes it a prime. Yeah, I don't need that. I just don't need it. Section A, and this becomes section A1. And section B, this becomes section C. Right? Always view the fruits of a being's work as a privilege and strive to enfranchise those beings who work for the betterment of the society, of the civilization, without force or coercion. Force, fear, or coercion. We understand that this is the harder path. We've learned from our mistakes that the alternative is far worse. We assume the best of every being. Civilization for all. We assume the relatively low risk of being abused. We openly assume. The relatively low risk of being abused in exchange for the much larger reward of a happier life overall. There we go. This end, a civilized society must adhere to the following orders. There we go. Basic needs of it is understood. A right to their basic needs. And should be granted civilization by default. All right. That by where it is known that by allowing a biased third party access to a being's basic needs of nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest, shelter, environment, comfort, privacy, freedom from fear, order, and security, we invite indentured servitude and compromise their ability to maintain compromise a being's ability to maintain morality, their personal morality. To that end, the civilization must grant all beings a right to their basic needs. To that end, the civilization must grant all beings their basic needs and should by default. There we go. By allowing a biased third party access to a being's basic needs of hydration, nutrition, hydration, respiration, rest, shelter, environment, comfort, privacy, freedom from fear, order, and security, we invite indentured servitude and compromise a being's ability to maintain their morality. To that end, the civilization must grant there we go. You're wondering why this is an important thing. This is why, right? So if you take away the basic needs from people, it compromises, it invites indentured servitude and compromises a being's ability to maintain their morality, which then hurts us all. To that end, the civilization must grant all beings their basic needs by default. The civilization should always view the fruits of a being's work as a privilege and strive to enfranchise. It's known that, let's keep going in the style of it is known that, because this looks like the way this document is reading out now is here are the rules that we're setting forth based on the concepts that we were saying above. A, B, and C are concepts above, with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 being the rules of society. So it is known that we should always, it is known that the civilization should always view the fruits of a being's work as a privilege and strive to enfranchise those beings to work for the better, or for the betterment of the civilization without force, fear, or coercion. We understand this is the harder path, but we have learned from our mistakes that the alternative is far worse, right? So you don't want to enfranchise people by just saying you will do this because I said so and I'm the boss. That won't work. It never works. You never get buy-in. People will give you very little response to that. See, we assume the best of every being, knowing that assuming the worst leads to a paranoid and uncomfortable civilization for all. We openly assume the relatively low risk of being abused in exchange for the much larger reward of a happier life overall. If you assume the best of people, they will give you the best. If you assume the worst of people, they will give you the worst. Right? To this end, a civilized society must... I'm making sure that the word civilization's in there instead of society. A civilized society must adhere to the following orders. 1, no being shall be denied the right to their basic needs or deprived of the right to live their life as they intend, unless their life or action poses a credible threat to the livelihood of other beings in the civilization, of the other beings in the civilization. So that says you can do whatever you want so long as you don't hurt anybody. When you hurt somebody, then you have a problem, right? Pepper is here.
Hello.
Messages from Pepper.
And it doesn't really ring as true as,
No, it doesn't. It's because you've got 2 syllables for your name. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't roll off your tongue so well.
Right. Right. It works really well with Bill.
Yeah, it does, because he's got a single syllable name.
Yeah.
Because you could do messages from Guy, and it would still work.
Yep. It doesn't, like, you have to, there has to be something, like, where there's, like, not, like, you have to use something that has, like, shorter, because messages has, like, 3 syllables in it.
Right.
And I think what makes it follow it up with a single one is because you do have those 3.
Right. Agreed.
And I know a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't really make sense because a lot of rhymes don't, like, work in that. And I was like, yes, but if you're looking at it as a jingle, jingles function like that.
Right. That is exactly how jingles work.
Yeah. And some people are like, but aren't rhymes just jingles? And I'm like, not quite. So someone tried to pretend to be my sister this morning.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, yeah, no, that's not you. Because I called my sister as she was going into the dentist right before. And I was like, are you talking to me through Instagram? And she's like, nope. And I was like, you're not my sister then. Trying to get me to do some type of mortgage thing.
Oh.
It's like I'm sorry, my mortgage is not through my name alone.
Right?
So what you working on?
I am hammering out. I had an idea and thought earlier today whenever I was working. So I go for a walk with my buddy Alex every
Mhm.
morning, and we walk laps around the park just so that we get moving and the blood gets flowing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This morning we got onto the topic of just concepts that travel through society for thousands of years and make people go, well, we can't change that. That's just human nature. And it's really not.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of things that are human nature, quote unquote, but they're really not. They're enforced by a function of society in some way or another.
Yeah.
And I mean, for example, if you think about like racism comes from slavery, comes from flaw in capitalism,
Yeah.
which comes from the Mesopotamians. So, like, you can pretty much trace the very first part of capitalism in Mesopotamia as a direct result coming up to slavery, which influenced racism, so to speak. And it's like, and people just think that that's our nature. It isn't our nature. We pick our family. That is a trait that's actually kind of stronger than actually our real family. Like, they always say that blood is thicker than water, but the reality is I would do a lot more for my chosen family, you and
Yeah.
Alex and all of these people whom I have decided are my family, whether you guys like it or not. I would do a lot more for you guys than I would say my cousin, as an example. Not because I hate my cousin, I just haven't talked to him much and he's not really connected to me as much. But I
So
would much more likely do stuff for you than for him at any point in time.
okay, so there is and I know that you just said the quote "blood is thicker than water," but do you know the full quote, or have you heard the full quote before?
Yes, I was using it in its colloquial sense, naturally,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm retorting. I do know the
Right.
quote doesn't actually say that. It's like many quotes that we have walked away with.
Yeah, we've kind of a lot of people have like dumbed
Co-op.
it down to suit it for their needs
Yeah.
to kind of go with what you're saying. Like, when people sit there and say blood is thicker than water, and then like the thing is like when you actually hear the full quote, you actually find out that's not actually that quote.
Right.
It's the blood of the covenant
Mm-hmm.
is thicker than the waters of the womb.
Which is in reverse.
Right, which means your chosen family is actually more important than your blood related family.
Yep.
Because your chosen family, you choose to be with those people rather than your birth family, which is basically you have no choice. You are settled with them.
Right.
And which
I think
means,
it's interesting that the co-op is reversed.
right. And the thing is the co-op was reversed to excuse poor behavior, traumatic behavior from family members, and several other types of negative effects from the family you were born into.
Yep. Well, and probably to also give validity to the crown and
Right, that too.
and to procession of the crown from father to son. Because like if we were all to make a country or whatever, you wouldn't want me to pass the mantle of the derivative of our country to my child. You'd want me to pass it to you or to Bill or to, somebody else in our group, so that, because they would know how the system functions better than say my kid.
Right.
But the crown really wanted to keep that in its line, and so I'll bet you that that's one of the reasons it was co-opted.
Right, and it was, yeah, you're actually correct in thinking that it was co-opted by royalty, because it really was.
It really was.
It really was.
Yeah, but I mean, I that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is that racism only exists because of isolation. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think of things like specifically, if you don't mind me using you as an example, homophobia came along the same thing in the same manner. For me, is as a child of the 80s, I was horribly homophobic for a while. And then I met homosexual people and realized they're just people.
Yeah.
Nothing weird about them. And then some of those people not only became friends, but became what I would construe as family. People who are in my core group. And at that point in time, you can't stay homophobic. You know what I mean? Like at that point, it's just really, really hard because you're essentially saying you don't like this family member because of X, Y, or Z. And that's weird and doesn't fit just sort of an internal consistency. But I've noticed that as well. People of color are in my family, my core group, which makes it difficult to just presume racism on people for me. Not impossible, it's sure capable, but there are now, I mean, especially Asians. I have a lot of Asians in my chosen family group, my coven, if you will. And that makes it difficult to find any of the stereotypes of Asians accurate. You know what I mean? Like, you know, some of my friends are very hardworking. Some of my friends aren't. You know, it's just the way it is. You know? And it's like, so this whole belief that all Asians do hardworking, yada, 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 meh. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Yeah.
I've got some buddies who would beg to differ, but that take effort. You know? And it's the same thing. And so I've been thinking a lot about that and kind of crafting a little bit more in my Bellatrix Rising's world building. Crafting the pandect of worlds, the general orders, so to speak. The general orders are very important to me because the Prime Directive influences so much of Star Trek, right? We can't do this because of the Prime Directive, you know, and stuff. So I wanted to have things that would put my characters into moral quandaries. You know, can we do this thing? Oh, that'd be in violation of the Prime Directive, you know. I wanted to do that originally. That was the drive behind creating this. But as I've been thinking about it, I'm like, you know, if you can create your own world, what would you say? You know, what would you do? And that's been something I've been kind of like, let's think about that. And so that's what's been causing this. And today, my buddy was talking about his wife working for somebody. And the manager is just doing things that really disenfranchise their workers. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, we hinge a whole lot of workers are just lazy on as just a default mode of people. Like, people are just lazy by default. You pretty much have to beat them up to make them do work. And I just, from my experience, that's just simply not true. You've been working for relatively free forever. I've been working for relatively free forever. Neither you or I are making a living off of our art. And so threatening to take our money away from us is really no big threat. You know? Oh, Pepper, you better do what I'm saying or I will take away that $10. You know?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I've had that before in the past, like where people have hired me and like have done that, and like they did not last very long as an employer.
Right, but that's.
I mean, I would just, because we are artists, and it's like one of those things of, well, if you're gonna treat me poorly, then yeah, you can find someone else.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Maslow's bottom two rungs of the hierarchy of needs. As long as you can control those two, you can make anyone amoral. You can compromise morality.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous to society. And that is I had that sudden realization that my society, my utopia, needs to protect that in order for it to be a utopia. I should protect it so that you cannot have somebody come in and go, hey, you know, I know you're hurting for money. I will give you money. Right? It's Pepper. I will give you money if you will do this amoral thing.
Yeah.
That's not beneficial to society at all. So I've actually changed sort of the rules in the. That's all right.
No, that's fine.
Brent, you can do what you need to do, man. Do what you need to do.
So, I was recently watching Miami Alex Breakdown, and it was the episode with another child actor, Christine Carlson Romano from Even Stevens and Cadet Kelly.
Okay.
And she touched bases, like she was talking about her personal life after Even Stevens and all of that Disney fame when she stopped, and she was talking on how she was trying to get roles and no one was like really giving her roles.
Right.
And so like she was talking about the struggles and like, and yeah, she did compromise. She actually did compromise her morals slightly for a movie where she did slight nudity.
Mm-hmm.
And she said like, everyone was professional about it. No one was, no one was like unprofessional. Everyone did everything properly. She never felt unsafe or anything like that. But in the end, thinking back about it, she was uncomfortable the entire time because she never really wanted to do something like that.
Right.
And the thing is she was also not in the best places mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, you do have people who will compromise, especially if they are desperate. When you come from a place of desperation for money, for jobs, to keep your health care, to keep like things that most people take for granted, there are certain archetypes of human beings that will like be like, okay, this is the line and I now have to cross it in order to get this. Or in order to do this. Like, right. One thing I won't do is political cartoons. Like, I won't do a political cartoon at all. Like, I worked for a political newspaper, and they're like, you won't draw a political cartoon? I was like, no, my illustration fee is $100 an hour.
Right.
And they're like, oh. And I was like, I will buy you political cartoons all day long from a website that has them already to go. But I'm not making one. You know?
Actually, and it's interesting that as much as I love to argue politics, apparently when Springs gets political, my muse just walks out the door and slams it.
Yeah.
Like the jokes don't land, nothing's funny. Yeah. It's just flat. And so it's like, that's an interesting thing. My muse will not do it.
Yeah.
Politics must be in Bellatrix Rising and stay there. My political arguments and views can stay in the big comic, the little one, not in the strip.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that fascinating too. And I'm saying that because it's interesting that you also have a hard line there as well. I don't know if it comes from the same spot, but it doesn't. It's still interesting that that's definitely a driving force for you as well.
Well, Mine comes from the fact that when I look at the overall political landscape of what I grew up with, how it is now, right. How history has shaped where we have come today, there are a lot of systematic stuff that has happened that basically showcases there's still problems, flaws, and cracks in the political system that I cannot fully flesh out like what I see properly. And so I would not be the right person to do a political idea in a cartoon or in a comic or anything like that. The main reason is I would have to be told which side I'm supposed to be on.
Right.
And there are a lot of things that I don't agree with both sides. A
I
political
did that
gambit.
a long time ago. I did that. My client was super, super liberal, and it was during George W. Bush's presidency. And I wrote a series of comic strips for her, and they are wonderful. I mean, the artwork is great, but I can't use it because it is seriously stilted to the left, and I don't want it to reflect my personal views. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, we see these cartoons, so you're clearly a lefty, and therefore," because of course I didn't agree with them at the time either. I just drew them. She wrote them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she was making the comics. I was just drawing her concept. She would tell me literally what the picture had to look like. It was the easiest job I had ever had. She told me exactly what it needed to look like. She told me what I was going to write underneath it. She gave me the text, everything. And all I had to do was just realize the picture. And it was wonderful. She paid me like $200 for each one of them. And it was wonderful. It was the best thing ever. But now I can't put it in my portfolio without it sounding like I'm endorsing that. You know what I mean? Like I was against George W. Bush. And I really wasn't.
Well, and see, and I've had this discussion with people who are political cartoonists, which these political cartoonists, they establish very early on in their careers. They are willing to do this. They will work with either side. They do not care. They leave their personal politics out of it, but they are known to be political cartoonists. They are political illustrators. They are political, like that is their genre that they draw in, and they're wonderful, fantastic people. Some of them can be a little bit ideology, but hey, that's their personality, that's their beliefs, that's the way they are. But there are some who do it because they know it's a quick buck. No one likes doing it. And they do it because no one else will. And so, like, those are the people that, like, kind of strived for years trying to figure out what they want to do. And then they settled on that ultimately because they saw a need. They needed to fill that need. And they did it.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No. And Brent, to your point, I just want to add in real quickly that to your point, there are 3 or 4 friends of mine that I will talk politics with or religion, and they're very rare, and it's not an assumption. I will not assume that I can talk to Pepper freely or whatever until Pepper and I establish that that's an okay thing to do in our relationship. Just addressing your statement there. There are certain people whom I actually like to discuss politics with who are politically opposite of me, and there are people who are politically aligned with me that I like to discuss because I don't agree with everything. So I totally didn't mean to cut you off on that one, Pepper. I just wanted to say that before Brent walked off and did something else.
No, it's fine. Like, no, it's just I myself have like a lot of conflicting political beliefs as well. So like, I conflict with myself,
right? Due
to the religious type background I grew up in.
Agreed.
So like, and everyone's like, well, like you're Catholic. It's like pagan but Christian, and I'm like, no, it's not. There's like a lot of things that go involved in Catholicism that are intertwined with Christianity that do flow into the type of politics you're exposed to as you're growing up. And it's because of the religious dialogue that you grow up with, that kind of dictates certain ideologies in the political arena that you actually do. And that's one of the things that I don't like about certain religious aspects of politics. Which is, again, why I don't want to draw it in cartoons. Because as much as I complain about where I came from, I have to realize that shaped who I am.
Right.
To a degree. And there's not a right way or a wrong way to live a life. You know, you just have to live your life the way that you need to live your life and how you feel comfortable and what calls to you. Spirituality is one of those things that you should have free reign of from childhood. You should be learning to explore and learn about other people's cultures, other people's religions, so that you have an understanding of them. And, you know, I want to do that with my own children. I don't want them to be settled with whatever I teach them as their religion. And some people are like, well, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that. Like, but I'm like, no, teaching my child, go ahead. Here's the world. What do you want to learn? Is not a bad thing, in my opinion.
Sure.
But I also went to a very progressive style Catholic schooling system.
Right.
Where I learned about other cultures and other religions in my studies. So there's a big difference on how I grew up, say, someone that was more, the Catholic faith is the only faith that you're going to see. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, when that goes into politics, that pretty much is the same way. Like, you grow up in a Republican family where, like I did, you only see Republican views.
Right.
But I want to state this right now, the Republican family that I grew up in is not the Republican family that I have today.
Right. I noticed that too. My dad's Republicanism as a younger man was nothing like the weird stuff he was into later on. And I'm like,
right.
Whoa. Like, and that, I think, is a product of propaganda, which I find fascinating and something I wish to go get a degree in. That's why I want to go back and get my PhD in cultural anthropology. That right there is exactly what I'm fascinated about, is how, like, I just added, because we were just talking about this, the sixth order to my rules of society, right? And that is, no being shall be subject to the rules of the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurs to me, because I originally thought about that by, okay, well, you get a religion that gets into your society somehow, and the religion's kind of crazy or whatever.
Messages from Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, before you were off your stream, I wanted to tell you about the Tesla.
I want to hear about the Tesla.
So, I enjoyed it. It was very fun. I am highly interested in getting one.
Right.
Like, the tech was really neat. Like, when you turn on your turning signal camera that they use for detecting stuff actually shows up on your screen. So, of course, you look over your shoulder, but then you can just look at the screen and it's doing the same thing.
Right. Which is great for those days when I wake up with a crick in my neck.
Right. Hey, Brent.
As a driving instructor, I will still encourage our viewers to please check over your shoulder anyway, because it's not infallible.
Yeah, I did both, like, because, you know, you're just used to it anyways.
Right.
So I just look over, and then I would just look at the camera, and that was cool. What is it called? The cruise control, the adaptive cruise control was nice, but
right.
You know, non-EVs have that too. I did not try the auto driving. I was a bit scared to do that, so we didn't do that.
I think you're still required to keep your hands on the wheel or something like that when it auto drives.
Right.
So, you know, it's difficult to, it's not impossible, just difficult to make it.
Right. And it says auto driving is still in beta. And so we just didn't want to risk it yet, especially with Florida drivers. And like the thrust of an EV, at least a Tesla, that was fun because you're just like thrown back in your seat and you just go. Yeah. It was nice.
I mean, even the little teeny goofy Leaf that we've got is throw you in the seat accelerating.
Right.
I mean, you know, like even that one is just, and I had actually, there was a discussion about why that is, and that is in order to make it effective for regenerating braking, they have to put a pretty big motor into them.
Right.
So in other words, they could put a smaller motor with lower horsepower, but then you get no benefit of the regenerative braking at all.
Right.
And so that's one of the big plus selling points on these cars, because it extends their range.
Right.
So because of that, they have to put these monster engines in these things. Well, that throws you in the seat all the time.
Mhm.
'Tis the nature of the beast.
Right. Now, I will say, besides that, like, even when you're not just purposely doing it for fun,
Mm-hmm.
like, there is something pleasurable about not having that gear change feeling.
Right.
Like, you just accelerate fluidly and you're just at your speed before you even know it.
Right.
And that was very comfortable and nice and enjoyable of an experience.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I found that to be unnerving for a while, but then I got
Really?
adjusted to it and I liked it. Well,
Yeah.
but I also like manual transmissions.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, I like that feel because of who I am. That's a personal thing.
Right. Now, so those are all the things I love about it.
Right.
Something that takes a little bit to get used to, but I end up liking it in the end, is the regenerative braking. Like,
Yep.
when you take your foot off the gas and all of a sudden you're just like, I'm braking, like, what's happening? That
Right.
takes a little bit to get used to. But then I found myself, like, never using the brake.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like, back off the gas just enough, and I slow down to a perfect stop where I want to be. And, like, I was rarely using the actual brake.
Yeah, they call that one pedal driving.
Right.
And that's really, I like that one too.
And finally, for the thing I didn't like, and I'm going to give it an excuse. It's a rental. It has a lot of miles on it. It was probably like a 2017 model, so it got years and miles on it. We were charging that thing every day, sometimes twice a day, and it took like 20 minutes to half an hour every time. And that was like more of a pain. Like, it was not what we needed. Like, looking at what it was supposed to be able to do, it was supposed to be able to, like, go from where we were in Palm Beach to Point St. Lucie at, like, there and back at, like, 20 to 25% charge. But we were doing that at, like, 50% of the charge was gone, just going there and back.
Right.
And that was annoying, but not as advertised. So I'm thinking it's just a worn battery from all the way back in 2017.
Maybe, yeah.
So I'm giving it an excuse.
Yeah, and usually there's a change in mentality with using an electric. Like, you know, you just get used to plugging it in every night, and then the next day it travels wherever you're going. And Tesla shouldn't be seeing degradation on the battery side. One of the complaints that I am seeing about Tesla specifically is that they're hyping their batteries so that in the same way that cars are being hyped, right? So when your gas car comes down to 5 miles left in the tank, you know you still have like 25 miles.
Right.
They're lying. But they've been lying because they've been adjusting it, because when people had 5 miles in their tank, they drive 6 miles and get stranded. And so because of that, car manufacturers over the years have slowly adjusted it so that 5 miles really means 25 or 30 miles left on the tank.
Right.
And you're getting sort of the Tesla's been messing with their internal processing in the same way and for the same reason, so that you can run it down to 1% charge and still really have about 10% left over, or 20%, so that you won't run it out, because the fear of range anxiety was really affecting Tesla quite a bit since they were forefront.
Right.
So what really was happening is that you were running out of battery faster than you thought, because they had adjusted the battery so that you would still have 10% charge when you had 0 on the charge meter. I noticed that same thing was happening with the Nissan. The Nissan could theoretically run past 0%, which was weird. And
they
then
should change the way they adjust that, such that they say it has 300 miles of range, but really it has like 350. But they just show it max out at 300, and then, because otherwise it was messing with us on that. And like,
Mhm.
I actually talked to a Tesla person because I was so much more interested in it. We stopped in the shop and we had a conversation. And he did say it's very different when you're able to plug it in at home. Our
Yeah.
hotel did not have a charger, so like
Oh
if
yeah.
we woke up and we're going somewhere, we had to stop.
Right. Right. I mean, that's the big difference
Mm-hmm.
is when you can plug it in at home, you don't notice at all for years,
Right.
years and years and years. We never went to a public charger except out of curiosity.
Right.
But, like Bojo's had a charger and we're like, ooh, we can go get pizza and charge our car. Isn't that great? But we didn't need to charge the car. We just did it because it was fun and it was
Mhm.
free.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is this house now has 2 electric charge ports in the garage. So, that was designed so that it would be a level 2 charger. So you
Mhm.
charge within 4 to 5 hours. So you'd come home and plug it in and it would be charged up by the time you wanted to go somewhere again.
Right.
And so that's the benefit
Mhm.
analysis, people looking at it like we treat gas cars.
Mhm.
Then you end up with, I don't want to spend 20 minutes at a time at a gas station, so to speak. And that's totally logical.
Mhm.
But they use that as a reason why electrics are bad. And I'm like, the problem is effectively when you buy an electric, you have a gas station in your garage with
Right.
an attendant that fills it up every night.
Mhm.
You don't have to do anything, So like that's the only problem is that's if you're going to treat it like a gas car in that manner, like this is a part against it, then you'd have to put the plus side on the other side, which is you effectively have a gas station in your garage.
Right.
My friend Kevin has said that all along. He'd have an electric, except that he lives in a condo and there's no outlet for it.
Mhm.
So, but
Right.
I mean, all of this new construction that we're seeing down here, they all have electric plugs in their garages. They're built-in underground garages that are underneath there. They all have plugs.
Nice.
So it's I mean, like, it's not going to be long
Mhm.
before that's not going to be an issue.
Right. So I figure between the car being older, newer ones having more range than the old ones,
Right.
and the ability to plug it in at home means I probably would not experience that negativeness that I was experiencing.
You are correct. Yes, because we actually had the new Leaf that we purchased recently is actually one of the old ones with only 70 miles in the battery, and until recently it hasn't even been a problem. And it's only been a problem because Mariah needs to go 2 different places in town every day, and one of them is way, way, way south. And so now she's got a problem. But originally, when that was an unexpected addition that we didn't know was going to show up when we purchased the car, we expected that she'd just be going to Boulder and back, and that's all she was going to do every day. And then we'd take the other car for anything else we needed, because she wanted to own the vehicle. She didn't want to. She was tired of leasing, and so she went to purchase one, and the cheapest purchased one was one that had the smaller. Into, if you will.
I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
I might need a refresh.
Yeah, I've got my OBS rigged properly now. Well, no, I just think we always have a problem.
I think we lost him.
Did we lose Guy?
Sorry if anyone commenting. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read it from here. So.
Uh-oh. Pepper and Bill, take over.
There we go. I'm back.
There he is.
Hey!
That was really weird. I could see you, and the video was running just fine, but I couldn't hear you. And now I'm just in lousy transmission mode on everything.
Yeah, it looks like that, Claudia. Are you on wireless, or is your computer wired in?
It's on wireless because it's upstairs.
You need to run a wire through your wall.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I was thinking about doing, was moving the router up here, because there's a cable outlet right there, and I could route to the cable outlet and then just run the router up here.
Right.
But I don't know if it's a wireless thing or what, but it seems like about this time every day my internet connection gets crappy. So I don't know why that is, but it is. So
I'll have to get back to work at the meeting. I can talk more about
either way, I think that's an awesome review, and I'm really glad you got to play with your Tesla. And I kind of envy, well, I definitely envy you. I would have loved to have played with that Tesla.
I'm very sold on it. It's just I have other stuff to get done, and then it's like maybe I want to put some money into updating our garage to have the higher amp outlet.
I think it cost us $250 for an electrician to do it.
We also have to update our electrical box.
That costs a lot more. Because when we put the solar panels on, the box had to be swapped out. And so, yeah, we did too. But it was worth it.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
All right. I have to go to a meeting.
See you later. Bye. That's all right. It is 2 minutes to 11, and I think we are almost done for the day anyway. I think, though, it is interesting. I use the electric car thing as a perfect example of how things got really weird with propaganda, because these people, I'll get into an argument with them and they are absolutely sure that these cars just run out of charge 1 mile down the road and then explode spontaneously, and like all of these things that I'm like, none of that is true, and they are absolutely sure it is, and that's so weird.
Well, I mean, we didn't treat it that way.
Yeah, I know. You aren't the problem. I'm. It's like, but it's weird when discussing things with people. They literally will not listen to someone who owns one. They believe so deeply that you either agree that these cars are explosive and destructive, or you are a liberal. You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird how they turned it into an ideology, and I'm like, it's not. I'm just saying that by the time my kids are 50, most of them will be driving electric. It's just far easier to deal with them. And they're like, you're just a liberal, and I'm like, has nothing to do with being a liberal, and that's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, we when we were doing, like, when I would say, like, when we were going and we were driving and we were riding in it and everything like that, like, it was different. Like, my sister rode with us with my niece and nephew, and I think the only problem that she said that she was having with it was, like, literally because she felt like she was on a roller coaster. And that had more to do with Bill's driving than the actual car.
Right. Well, and Bill was probably like all of us, just having way too much fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to save this in a trans or copyable format so that I don't have to worry about it. Like this, I'm not going to save that. We're not going to save this either. But this, I'm going to flatten so I can save it as it is. So, yeah, today's whole job was to straighten out my constitution of world's laws after thinking that through. So, one of the things that we kind of came up with, finishing what I was talking about, that my buddy and I were talking about when we were walking, was that if you don't have the bottom two tiers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs met for all of your citizens, then you run the risk of them being compromised and their morals being compromised, and that's to the detriment of everybody in society. And so it's in the best interest of everybody in society to cover everybody's bottom two layers of needs. And so that was like something I was like, oh crap, I got to put this into my constitution, because like you need to be that needs to be covered, because otherwise people's morals get compromised. And if their morals get compromised, you're basing your entire civilization on the morality of people. And if they compromise, then you're like, well, that sucked,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when people like sit there, like, if I do insert some type of religious aspect to something I'm writing or I'm come up with, and you see me put in like they're going door to door to do religious aspect stuff,
right?
I naturally make them look foolish, because part of what I grew up with and part of what I believe now is I don't believe that you should oppress another person's religion or choice of freedom of religion by trying to preach in that manner and try to like go door to door to convert people.
Right.
And so I will place those people in a way that makes them look foolish, makes them look arrogant.
Right.
And that's why I try to avoid it.
Makes sense.
Like, unless there is a very particular reason why I need to do that, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Well, the rules, this Constitution was really born, like I said, out of the desire to have a prime directive. And I love the fact that this prime directive has gotten to a point now where you really can pretty much say, hey, here's this strange new world we've landed on, and here are these people doing this thing, and oh, we can't do something because of Order 1 and Order 6. You know what I mean? Like, we can't do these things or whatever because of this order and that order, which is a societal order. It says, in order to have a civilized society, we must adhere to these 6 orders.
Right.
And I may have more, I just haven't thought of them yet. And I'm hoping I think of them before I run into them somewhere along the line in the story.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's Order 1 is no being shall be denied the right to their basic needs or deprived of the right to live their life as they intend, unless it poses a credible threat to the livelihood of other beings in the civilization. So, like, I can't tell you have to be flying spaghetti monster religion, because that's against Rule 1 now. Order 1 says that I can't tell you to live your life a different way. I'm not allowed to. And of course, Order 6, no being shall be subject to the rules of the minority. So I can't make you be Christian if the Christians only maintain 30% of the culture. I can't force that on you. And even when they're 70% of the culture, that's telling you to live your life against your means, despite the fact that you're not hurting anybody. It hurts no one to say, you are all hail to the flying spaghetti god. That hurts nobody. So
right.
I can't by the Constitution of the Unity, I can't deny that. I can't take that away from you.
Right.
Because it doesn't threaten anybody. which I think would be fascinating to discuss the fact that this was actually not the Unity's constitution. This is all humanity made before all of the branches were created. And I think it'd be interesting to see how the Commonwealth bends it, right? Because like I could see the Commonwealth going, well, yes, but if you're not Christian, it's a threat to society. Therefore, we have to make you, or whatever. If you're not Spaghetti Monster, it's a threat to society. Therefore, you have to be Spaghetti Monster. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's bending that to their will, and it's not flawless. And I could see that being an interesting way of taking a story and twisting it so that it goes against it. So the Commonwealth can say, we're still following the Constitution.
Right.
Bent it in this way. The Parmesan must be freshly grated and spread over the entire meal.
Right.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with garlic bread being served at every meal. I'm just saying. Sounds pretty lovely.
I mean, garlic bread at every meal is like having a side of pesto for your bread to be dipped in.
Right? It's required. Time for me to do conversion of the office. We can now convert to...
I mean, I'm right there with you, Brent. I do now want spaghetti, and I have a fresh pesto sauce I made yesterday.
Exactly.
Like, a little bit of that and some grilled chicken.
Yep. Okay, I'm out of here, my friend.
Oh, you are? Okay.
The night stream, we're going to move back to 9 to 11 now at night.
Yeah, that's too late for me.
That's what?
That's too late for me.
That's fine. But that's just in case that ever becomes not too late. Then I thought you would know that and would want to know that. But either way, to Brent, we're moving to 9 to 11 now because we want to clear the stream in time for me to go to bed, because last night I went to bed at midnight, didn't really get to sleep till 1, and then my alarm went off at 6:30. And so it's kind of like, so I'm a little tired. So I'm thinking if I can clear at 11, I can go to bed and then be asleep by midnight. And now we just found out the school starts at 8:30, so the kid has to leave here at 8, which is great because that means we can get up at 7:30. So if I'm asleep by midnight, that's still 7.5 hours of sleep. That's pretty good. So cool. Just so you guys are all aware, the stream now matches. It's 12 hours apart, 9 to 11 in the morning and 9 to 11 at night. So I will talk to you guys all later. Pepper, thank you for joining me, my friend.
You're welcome.
I missed you. It's good to have you back.
It's all good.
I'll see you later. Bye, Brent. I'll see you. And
Bye-bye.
then everybody else, you know what they say, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye-bye.